Let's play this back.
Again, it was just kind of, which one was one of the
responsible, frankly, such a scrub that you're going to offer 300 people he's ever done was because I knew that he didn't care about this case. I mean, this was a person who was talking trash about Turning Point USA, talking trash about Erica Kirk up until May. And then he goes to their headquarters and he comes out like he's Daddy Warbucks and is talking about, throwing money at Candace and shouting me out on Piers Morgan and shouting me out on Joe Rogan. And it just showed that he was completely disingenuous. Like, this is not his perspective on women in the role as CEOs that he's ever demonstrated. But this is what happens over and over again. We see these people who are fundamentally just online prostitutes, right? You give them enough money and they will go out and they will change their position on anything. And this is somebody who was supposed to represent that like culture of guys online talking to girls about being prostitutes. And so I just was like, this is easy. And if you're going to be such a scrub that you're going to offer $300,000, I mean, it's absurd. It's financially irresponsible, frankly. Then let's do it.
I think look, that is a lot of money. I ain't gonna lie. 300K, I wouldn't do that. But, let's be pragmatic here. The amount of advertising that thing got him was nuts.
Yeah.
People spend millions of dollars to get that level of exposure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think it was, I think it was good that it happened. Like, and I thought it was good that it was going to happen when it was for, like, I always, I think it's good to have these debates, and it's good kind of for people to see them. Look, this is obviously, this is a huge topic. This was the biggest political assassination in modern history, which is weird, modern, I mean, saying like post 60s or whatever. This is like the biggest political assassination in America in me and your lifetimes. It is a thing that, let's just say, huge swaths of the American people are not buying the official story on, and wherever you are on what you think is real, I think certainly we could probably all agree that, well, like, yeah, I'm sorry, like, once the FBI took over this investigation, there's just no credibility from the state.
They never took over oh God, dude. Dude, the FBI never took over this investigation, dude. This was always a state case, man. The FBI came in to assist only, with evidence, manpower, and resources. FBI did not take lead on this case, dude. Come on, man. Come on, Dave. You're smarter than that, man.
State. And so nobody trusts anything they say. It's interesting to have these credibility from the state. And I'm sorry, like, once the FBI took over this investigation, there's just no credibility from the state. And so nobody trusts anything they say. It's interesting to have these debates and the pushback on them. And I think that, I don't know, I guess one of the things that I was thinking about a lot, but even in the lead up to this debate, was just kind of, which one was one of the things that I think got teased out, which was an interesting thing from my perspective in the debate, is it's like, hey, what is exactly the standard of the burden before people can freely speculate, about like a topic? And like, obviously, okay, we have kind of this standard that I guess since like the Magna Carta or whatever has been the pillar of Western civilization, that, okay, before we deprive someone of their liberty, the standard is like what we call it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very clunky, weird phrase that is not even clear what, like, how do you go beyond a point of doubt? What exactly does that mean? I guess it means like there essentially is no doubt, although there always is some degree of doubt. But anyway, so we say that's the standard before we imprison someone and take away their freedom. Now, the standard for, say, you firing someone, like if you suspected someone on your team was stealing from you, okay, I don't know that we don't have the same standard that you say it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, but certainly we would go like, hey, you don't want to fire someone if they didn't actually steal from you. So like, make sure you're right about that. But I also thought something that was just very interesting to me is like, I said this on my recap the other day, I thought that once Andrew said 75%, I almost went, well, then there's the debate.
Right.
I mean, if we're only at 75.
This goes back to what I said before. I think if someone says 75 to 80%, that still constitutes as overwhelming, because it is the majority. But it depends on how you want to interpret overwhelming. That's open to interpretation.
5%, then that gives license to a good friend of Charlie Kirk's to be like, well, I'm going to pursue every other theory under the sun. I mean, I just don't like, it's like, once we're saying that, what exactly are we saying? Now, again, fine. If you want to say, hey, don't make specific claims unless you have specific proof, that's fine. And we could go over that. But more broadly speaking, I mean, you're at 75%. I don't know exactly where I am, but I know that Joe Kent told me that the investigation was suppressed. So there's 10% right there off the top.
Okay, let's just handle this, okay? And again, I'll start from the beginning, but what I'm going to say is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but it's going to be all facts, and it's not going to align with what's sexy to say on mainstream media now, or what I call like a conspiracy economy that we currently have at the moment. So let's go through this, okay? Joe Kent, this guy right here, all right, was the number 2 guy under Tulsi Gabbard. For those of you guys that remember, Tulsi Gabbard was the head of the DNI director. She was the DNI director of national intelligence, which, long story short, she oversees all the 30 plus intelligence agencies. They all report to her and, share their information with her. CIA, NSA, FBI, which they have an intelligence component, which we're going to get into them in a little bit here. They all report to her to some degree when it comes to information, aka intelligence, right? Joe Kent was her number 2 guy, and he was pretty much the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Okay? Now, it's very important for you guys to understand that neither Joe Kent or Tulsi Gabbard are law enforcement officials. Okay? They come from the intelligence world. Okay? They are not sworn law enforcement officers. Okay? Now, in order for this to make sense, I'm going to have to explain to you guys the difference between intelligence and law enforcement, because I constantly see this bastardization between the duties of law enforcement versus the duties of intelligence. So let's go over intelligence first. Okay? Intelligence, guys, is when you are gathering information, namely secrets, of a foreign country to better position your home country in the geopolitical landscape. Okay, that's the simplest way I can define it. Let me go ahead and give you an explanation let me give you an example. You got an American who speaks fluent Russian, maybe was born in Russia, came to the United States, then said, you know what, I want to serve the United States, goes to Russia, pretends to be, a hardcore patriot, infiltrates the Russian military, rises up within the ranks, collects information, and then gives that information back to intelligence agencies in the United States, namely like the CIA, etc. DIA, CIA. DIA is Defense Intelligence Agency. CIA is obviously Central Intelligence Agency. Right? And the U.S. government uses that.
Odert 1144 has donated $2 and says W. Myron L. Women.
Hold on one sec, chat. Sorry. And the United States uses that to prepare, right, for what Russia might have. Okay? Whenever you're dealing with adversarial countries like, Russia, Iran, China, etc., we have intelligence operatives that are over there either undercover or debriefing sources that are operating undercover and getting information to put us in a better position geopolitically. So we have other countries' secrets and we have leverage. Okay? That is the purpose of intelligence agencies. This occurred after the monumental levels of death that happened from the 2 world wars. World War I and World War II were responsible for probably easily somewhere between 60 to 100 million people dead. Okay? And after World War II, countries realized that waging traditional warfare is no longer beneficial. Okay? So instead of waging traditional warfare, i.e. fighting in trenches and storming beaches and, bombing campaigns and people having actual face-to-face combat, what countries realized was, look, instead of us sending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers to, take land, why not just back people that have aligned interests with us? Okay? Said this before, I'll say it again. There's no such thing, guys, as alliances. There's only aligned interests. Okay? So as long as your interests are aligned, you will work together. I gave the example before that we backed Saddam Hussein and gave him money and weapons and support to fight the Iranians. Okay? And that was because we had a vested interest in toppling the Islamic Republic, which had just taken over in 1979, the Islamic Revolution. As you guys know, they threw the Shah out of there, right? We had problems with enormous amounts of tension with Iran. So we gave Saddam Hussein weapons and support to fight the Iranians in the 1980s, which ended up becoming a very violent and, stalemate war. Then you fast forward to 2003, and we're over here fighting Saddam Hussein. So this goes back to what I was saying before, where there's no such thing as alliances, just aligned interests. One day we're working with you, another day we're bombing your country and trying to take out your dictator leader, right? That's geopolitics for you. So that is the intelligence community, okay? Disrupting foreign governments, collecting secrets, using said secrets to have a geopolitical or military edge within the geopolitical sphere, and also also overthrowing certain governments and running coups. This is something also that intelligence agencies have done recently. You look at Ukraine, for example, the Myron Revolution. That was a American intelligence, Western intelligence operation to get rid of the pro-Russian leader and put Zelensky in, okay, under the guise of democracy, right? So this is how things are done now, okay? Now, the reason why intelligence agencies, right, are intelligence agencies because a lot of the stuff that they do is clandestine, okay? It's a lot, and a lot of it is illegal. A lot of it is illegal, okay? Being in a foreign country and not declaring yourself is a crime in most of these countries, by the way, okay? Collecting information for the United States in a foreign country is a crime. If they catch you, they're going to kill you, all right? So everything that intelligence agencies do is classified at a high level. You got informants involved, right, that are providing information. You got certain technologies that are sensitive that we don't want people to know how we were able to collect certain information. So the entire intelligence apparatus is shrouded in secrecy and mist so that people don't know what the is really going on. Okay? Now, this is a stark contrast to law enforcement. Law enforcement, despite what some of you may think, has to operate in the light to some significant degree. Why? Because law enforcement's job is to build a criminal case against someone and take it to trial in front of a jury. So, well, guess what? The jury doesn't have a clearance. The judge doesn't have a clearance. Most AUSAs don't even have a clearance. The defense counsel definitely doesn't have a clearance. So when it comes to law enforcement, everything needs to be discoverable. Nothing can be classified. Okay? Because you're trying to put together a case that is going to be public at some point. Okay? Because in the United States, our trials are open criminally. This is completely opposite and antithetical to the entire mission of intelligence. Intelligence operates in the dark. Law enforcement has to operate in the light if you want to get your case prosecuted, at least. Right? So the other thing that's important is that intelligence agencies don't have arrest powers like law enforcement does. Okay? Now, this is where we're going to kind of get into the topic at hand that Dave Smith's talking with this whole Joe Kent thing, because I needed to explain to you guys the difference between law enforcement and then intelligence. Okay? Because too many people conflate the CIA with the FBI. Now, let's go into the FBI because the FBI is a very unique agency here. In the federal system, certain agencies have national security duties. HSI, FBI, etc. Right? I would say HSI and FBI are probably the two biggest ones because they're the two biggest law enforcement agencies with the most authority, and they probably have the biggest seats at the table when it comes to national security for a law enforcement agency, right, or representation. The FBI has two different jobs. They're law enforcement, but they're also an intelligence agency, okay? They gather intelligence domestically versus the CIA gathers intelligence foreign, okay? So anything that's foreign goes to the CIA. Anything that's domestic goes to the FBI. Now, the FBI has to kind of play a certain game because what ends up happening with them is they're a law enforcement agency, so they have to present cases for criminal prosecution, but they're also an intelligence agency and deal with classified information and sensitive information that can't see the light of day in many courtrooms, okay? Now, when it comes to this case, right, with the Charlie Kirk shooting, the reason why Kash Patel told Joe Kent to back off, okay, is because this is standard practice in the law enforcement community, right? I know the sexier thing to say here that will get me more views is saying, yeah, it's a conspiracy. Kash Patel is trying to cover it up. Like, yeah. Well, unfortunately, number one, I'm not a number two, I understand the differences between law enforcement and intelligence. And I also, most importantly, have been in this situation before. Okay? How have I been in this situation? Well, story time, guys. Make sure to like the video because you guys are about to get sauce. I vividly remember when I was an agent with HSI that, let me move this thing a little bit. Okay. So I remember when I was an agent, right? Border Patrol used to do field intelligence reports. Okay, and they would collect information and gather intelligence. There was something called like Border Patrol intelligence agents, right? And what would happen is anytime like a load of illegal aliens got caught or someone got caught with drugs or whatever, right? Border Patrol would interview these individuals, okay, to collect information from an intelligence perspective only. There's only one problem with that though. Intelligence guys don't have the same goals as law enforcement guys. So I can't tell you how many times I show up at the Border Patrol station. I'd walk in and I see Border Patrol intelligence agents talking to the guy that tried to smuggle in illegal aliens, right? Now, why is this a problem? Well, number one, Border Patrol agents are not investigators, okay? Regardless of the fact that they wear plain clothes. They're not investigators, okay? They're not 1811s. Number two, they're interviewing someone about criminal activity and they never Mirandize them, okay? Because their goal isn't to put together a criminal investigation for prosecution. Their goal is to collect information and intelligence on what's going on in Mexico and identify multiple members of smuggling organizations. Okay? So I think you guys see where I'm going here. There were fights all the time between Border Patrol and HSI because Border Patrol would interview guys without reading them their Miranda rights. And the reason why they would interview them without reading them their Miranda rights is because they have no intention of prosecuting them. So essentially what ends up happening is they'll just do kind of an illegal interview, but they don't intend to use it for prosecution. So it doesn't matter, right? You're mandated to read someone their rights if they're under arrest or if there's the implication that they're not free to go. But since these people are illegal aliens, they're not here lawfully, and they're not intending to prosecute them, they'll just interview them to collect intelligence, right? Seems harmless. But the problem with this is that conflicts with the objective of law enforcement. So I show up to the station, I see two guys from BP Intel talking to the principal subject in my criminal investigation. That's why I'm here in the first place. You guys caught the aliens. You called me to come in and further investigation. I show up. I see BP Intel agents talking to the guy. I remember telling him, yo, get the out of the interview room. What the are you guys doing? Why are you interviewing my guy? Did you read him his rights? No. Get the out of here. And that'd be a problem because now I can't take the case. And it's happened before where I go in, I see them talking to him. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, we're just gathering intel. Who the told you you could do that? Well, we're just collecting intel. Bro, what you just everything up. You asked him all these incriminating questions. You didn't read him his rights. I can't take this. No USA is going to want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, right? And then this happens so often on the border where Border Patrol had to make an MOU, right? Memorandum of Understanding with HSI where they will not interview suspects in a smuggling case unless HSI declines first. So if I show up and I say, hey, look, we don't got a case here or we're not going to prosecute, then you could go ahead and do your dumbass intelligence report, right? But they used to do that beforehand and that would fuck up the criminal case. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you guys need to understand that there's a fundamental difference between intelligence and law enforcement. So bringing this back to Joe Kent. When Joe Kent went around snooping on this criminal investigation, Kash Patel was right to say, what the fuck are you doing? This is a criminal case. What's your need to know? You're not a law enforcement official, okay? And quite frankly, if we want your help, we'll ask for it. But this is a criminal investigation that we are in an assist capacity with. And quite frankly, if you want to be let in, you ask. Don't just come in and start researching our targets and all this other shit. So when people were saying, oh, look, Kash Patel stonewalled them, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is a perfect example of people just don't understand the difference between law enforcement and intelligence. Fights like this happen all the time, guys. Fights like this happen all the time. You know how often it is where CIA and FBI will fight over things not happening? Shout out to Chief Taro in the chat. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I'm talking about with these intel agents. Thank you for the 25 gifted, bro. So when it comes to like intelligence and law enforcement, they often fight guys over like this because intelligence doesn't have the intention of bringing the case to prosecution, which up the criminal case, because they'll do illegal to get information. Does that make sense? I'll give you guys another example. Okay, this guy right here, his name is Ali Soufan. Okay, famous FBI agent, Lebanese FBI agent, fluent Arab speaker. Right, he was the lead case agent, if I'm not mistaken, on the USS Cole. For those of you guys that don't remember, the USS Cole attack was on a Navy ship back in like the year 2000, before 9/11. Okay, and the attack on the USS Cole was like one of the first attacks of Al Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden was behind it. Right, so Ali Soufan was one of the main agents that was involved in the 9/11 investigation. Now, due to the fact that bin Laden was a wanted terrorist in the United States, but he operated foreign, guess what happens? He didn't attack in the United States, but he operates foreign. So what have we just created here? Well, I explained to you guys earlier. CIA is foreign, FBI is domestic. What do you do when you have a high-profile target like Osama bin Laden, who committed an attack on U.S. soil, which gives the FBI jurisdiction, but he's internationally, he's abroad with a strong international nexus? That brings in the CIA. Well, what does this inevitably lead to? Clashes.
Welcome, punch!
The FBI is trying to bring together a criminal investigation to indict people. Meanwhile, the CIA is just trying to waterboard and get information. Ali Soufan would often be in these interviews, in these interrogations of these individuals when they were being interviewed. Now, as an FBI agent, he can't be out here waterboarding. That's CIA type. You get in some serious trouble as a criminal investigator, waterboarding, let alone waterboarding them in a foreign country. So what often would happen is that when the CIA would do their interrogations, the FBI wasn't allowed to be there. Well, number one, because the CIA just didn't want to share information, and then number two, because this would put the agents in a horrible position. You can't prosecute someone that's getting waterboarded 10 times a day. Completely illegal. And I'll never forget, Bush famously said, "Oh, we don't torture our captives." Yeah, okay, buddy. Okay. So when Ali Soufan would sit in on some of these interviews, I think one of the guys was like Abu Zubaydah or something like that. Let me see here. He has an eye patch, Al Qaeda eye patch guy. I think it's like Abu Zubaydah or something like that. Let me look. Yeah, there we go. Damn, I'm good. Let's go. This dude, right? Wait, is this him? No, this ain't him. Wait, this is out of jail? Oh, what the? Okay, so, he is born March. Okay, currently is a Palestinian born in Saudi Arabia, currently held by the U.S. in the Guantanamo detention camp. He is held under the authority of the authorization of use of military force against terrorists. The United States government has never officially charged him with any crime. Believed to be a high-ranking Al Qaeda member, Abu Zubaydah was captured in Pakistan in March 2002 and has been in the United States custody ever since, including 4.5 years in the secret prison network of the intelligence agency. He is transferred among prisons in various countries, once in Poland. Okay, yeah, so this is him. Yeah, Abu Zubaydah was extensively interrogated. He was waterboarded 83 times and subject to numerous other torture techniques, including forced nudity, sleep, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this is him. Bro used to wear an eye patch. I don't know what they got him on GQ cover now? He's still detained? All right, whatever. It's so strange. The point I'm trying to make here is that this guy, right, because he got in a shootout and he almost died. This is him, right? He got in a shootout and he almost died. And this guy was a high-ranking guy in Al Qaeda, and he provided a lot of information. And the CIA waterboarded him a lot. And what happened was Ali Soufan couldn't be in there when they would do that, right? And he would complain like, "Look, you're not going to get real information when people are under duress." So that's a perfect example of what I mean when I say law enforcement and intel don't have the same goals. Intel has the goal of collecting information for geopolitical leverage. Meanwhile, the FBI has the goal of collecting information for criminal prosecution. Okay, the two rarely converge with a similar goal in mind. So to bring this all back and spin this for you, and wrap this up nicely for you guys, okay? The reason why Kash Patel told Joe Kent to f off is because intelligence agencies simply don't have the same goals as law enforcement. And if anything, when you bring intelligence guys in, they f up your case because they're not criminal investigators and they don't understand the how to preserve a criminal investigation for prosecution. Give me ones of that makes sense. I know that was a very in-depth analysis, But I really needed you guys to understand this. And yo, who else on YouTube could do this, by the way? Nobody else can give you guys that breakdown. I gave you guys real life examples. Then I gave you an example from my own experience when I was on the job of how Intel everything up. So I know the sexy thing to say is, oh, Kash Patel is involved in some crazy conspiracy and he was covering it up and didn't let Joe Kent investigate. Yo, Joe Kent's not an investigator, bruh. I would have told that get the out of here too. If some Intel guy was looking into a case that I was involved in, I'll say, what the are you querying my case for? Get the out of here. You're not a gun toter. You're not a law enforcement official. You're an Intel guy. Get the out of my case, bro. You have to be territorial with your investigations because Intel will your case up. And quite frankly, I'm like one of the few people that could talk about this in extreme detail. So that's why Kash Patel told them off. Now you guys have the high IQ explanation. So I don't want none of you guys being more on, Kash Patel's involved in a huge conspiracy. No, bro. It's just that law enforcement historically has never liked intelligence agencies. The CIA and the FBI have never liked each other. The FBI is kind of like the redheaded stepchild in the intel community because they're the only, large scale intelligence agency that also has a law enforcement capability alongside them. That's why they're kind of looked at as the redheaded stepchild within the IC.
Of my certainty. Right. And so I don't know. I thought that in some ways that debate, which was more meta than the actual debate, was that was an important conversation for Americans to have about all these things.
And that was kind of what I was trying to demonstrate early on. As soon as he said 75%, why does he have a problem with people thinking about what would be to him 25%, right? Why does he have a problem with people stepping outside and saying, I'm looking at the evidence and I'm interpreting it in a different way? And the reason why I knew that he did not watch the preliminary hearing was because he was completely lost on the point that I was trying to make when I said, I can keep explaining this to you, but I can't understand this for you. Where they are at in terms of where he gathered what he perceives to be overwhelming evidence was during the probative hearing. The standard at the probative hearing is you can just look at a piece of evidence and then you can infer what you want. The prosecution is basically doing what Candace Owens is doing on her podcast, right? So the prosecution is looking at a person in a maroon shirt and saying, that looks like Tyler Robinson to me. Because they're both wearing Converse sneakers. He actually said this, lead investigator.
Yeah, but Candace, look, they're also using that alongside other tangible pieces of physical evidence. They're not just using the maroon shirt to say that's him. They're using how he looks. They're using witnesses. They're using the surveillance cameras from different angles. They're not just using one piece of evidence. They're using multiple pieces of evidence, multiple pieces of circumstantial evidence to paint a picture.
They couldn't even connect me because they're both wearing Converse sneakers.
Oh, by the way, guys, how's the video looking now? Does it look better than last time? Should look a lot better for you guys now. Give me ones if the video's really good. You're Myron. Have you heard of John Kirchhoff, former CIA? Yeah, I know who he is. He's kind of a bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. Lost a lot of respect for him.